It is 6:50 a.m. for me, so good morning, and I hope that you are well. What I'd like to discuss today is becoming a U.S. citizen. Too many people sit back and criticize the influx of migrants. Call them what you like, pilgrims, asylum seekers, settlers. Call them anything you like. Doesn't matter. Coming into the country is a great idea. And I think that not enough people touch on some of the information necessary to actually make that happen. They're so busy focusing on all of the negative side of things. Now, I do not encourage unlawfully crossing a border into the United States. I think that that is rude. It is illegal. First time it's an infraction. An infraction is, well, don't do that again. You may have to pay a fine. And if it goes far enough into court, you might actually end up in jail for it, but not prison. If they put you back across the border outside the U.S. and you come back, that's a felony. And a felony could very likely land you in prison. So it's really not something you want to experience. The United States has a better prison system than some countries, but still not great. So let's talk about the N-400 form.
Hi everyone, I'm Jackie and I'm here to help you with your U.S. naturalization process. After you verified you are eligible to apply for U.S. naturalization, the next step is to fill out the N-400 form, the application for naturalization. This might seem like a daunting task, and you might not even know where to start. However, if you follow my tips in this video, I assure you it's not as hard as it looks. First, get the correct form. If you're applying online, you don't have to worry about this step. However, if you're filing by mail, always make sure to download the form from the official USCIS website. I also suggest to double check your version is the latest before mailing in your application. Read the instructions thoroughly. I notice a lot of applicants, especially those who apply online, skip this step and have a lot of questions along the way. Questions like, is a traffic ticket a citation? Or do I need to include my stepchildren? Most of these questions can be answered by reading the USCIS instructions on their website. So take the time to carefully read through the N-400 instructions before filling out the form. This will help you fill out the form smoothly and avoid mistakes. Gather all required documents. Before you start filling out the application, gather all of the necessary supporting documents. This may include your green card, tax returns, and any additional documentation required for your specific case. Take a look at the document checklist, M477. In most cases, you should send a copy of the official documents and bring the originals to the interview. If any of your documents are in a foreign language, you need to include a translated copy in English. The translation must include a statement to state that the translator is competent to translate and that the translation is correct. Provide accurate information. Accuracy is crucial. Double check that all of the information you enter matches your official documents. Mistakes can cause delays or even result in your application being denied. Have a family member or a friend review your application. Now, even if you've hired someone else to fill out the application for you, Make sure to double check it before sending it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen lawyers enter incorrect information. So double check. Be honest and transparent. Honesty is key. Even if you think the truth might not benefit you, you should answer the questions truthfully. USCIS takes honesty seriously, and providing false information can lead to major consequences, including getting your application denied. And if you have any criminal record, I do suggest consulting an immigration lawyer. Keep a copy of your application. Usually it takes between 3 months to a year to get your interview scheduled. By then, you probably aren't going to remember what you filled out. So it's a good idea to keep a copy of the entire packet, including all of the forms and supporting documents. Submit the correct fee. Ensure that you include the correct filing fee with your application. This includes the application fee and the biometrics fee. Make sure to check the USCIS website for the latest fees. If you're applying online, the website will guide you to submit the proper fee after you submit your application. Submit your application to the correct address. If you're applying online, you can skip this step. If you're applying by mail, you need to send your application to the correct USCIS lockbox, depending on where you live. You can find that information on their website. All right, I hope these tips help you to fill out your application successfully. Good luck with your naturalization application.
Okay. Now that was some basic information, things you should remember. Take notes if you need to. It's very important to know this stuff. These are the things. This is why I say a lot of people don't know these things. So once it's introduced to you that it's something you don't know and you need more information on something, go find out. So important. Now, as far as these fees, these are the last time I checked. But we have here the form itself. I'm going to put this address for this form, USCIS website, in the description of this video, so that people can actually access it. Super, super important. So this is the place to find the form. Okay. Now, if you click on this, it's going to ask you for some basic information. You cannot get to the form unless you register an account on this website. They have to know who you are so they can check it against the application, and then they can run it through the system and make sure that all of the information is accurate, excuse me, and authentic. I do not know a number of people who have tried to defraud this system, but I can only imagine that there have been people who have tried. So these measures wouldn't be necessary if people hadn't already tried it. So this is where you go. We can't take a look at the form because I don't have an account here. I'm a natural born citizen, so looking at the form isn't a perk that I have. So and then there's biometrics. Biometrics. Okay. This touches on what biometrics is. And there's some basic information on what you need when you go to get your biometrics done.
So if you've applied for an immigration benefit to USCIS, such as an application for a green card or an application
really
for a change of status, you might be required to provide your biometrics information as part of your application process. In this video, I'm going to give you a play-by-play of everything that you can expect at your USCIS biometrics appointment. And I'm also going to share some tips with you that can help you have a good experience at the USCIS Application Support Center where your biometrics are going to be collected. Now, first things first, what you should know about this appointment is that it's not going to be an interview experience, not even close. All the USCIS biometrics appointment is an opportunity for USCIS to see you in person and to collect some identifiable metrics such as your fingerprints and a photograph of yourself. Now, if your USCIS application requires your biometrics information, USCIS will send you a biometrics appointment notice, and usually you can expect to receive this biometrics notice from USCIS within 12 weeks after you filed your immigration application. Now, during this appointment, you don't have to pay a fee for the collection of your biometrics, as you would have already paid this fee at the time you filed your application to USCIS. Now, your appointment notice will also come with a worksheet that has to be completed before you attend your biometrics appointment. Now, when you receive the biometrics notice, it's going to have the location of the USCIS Application Support Center where your biometrics information is going to be collected. It's also going to have the scheduled date and time of your appointment. Now, something else to pay attention to on this form is a code number that appears in the top right corner. Now, this code number could take the numbers 1, numbers 2, or numbers 3, and these numbers will decide what type of biometrics information that you're going to be required to provide on the day of your appointment. Now, I'm going to be explaining the differences between these code numbers later on, but for now, let's talk about what you should bring during your appointment. So, on the day of your appointment, you're going to need to have a valid photo identification. Now, this could be a valid driver's license, it could be your passport, and for certain applicants, a green card could be a required form of identification during your appointment. You're also going to need the original copy of your biometrics appointment notice. Now, on the day of your appointment, you should plan to get there on time, and preferably you should get there about 15 minutes before your scheduled appointment. When you show up at the Application Support Center, you're going to notice signs on the door that tell you that the use of electronic devices are prohibited. So the first thing you should do is to turn off your phone if you're going to be taking that into the building. Now, once you walk into the building, you're going to meet a receptionist who's going to review your photo identification and will also review your biometrics appointment notice. Once this receptionist confirms your identity and reviews your biometrics appointment notice, you are going to be handed a processing form and a ticket number. Now, this processing form that will be handed to you is just for the use of the biometrics officers. And after that, you will be asked to take a seat and wait for a biometrics officer to call your ticket number. Now, once a biometrics officer calls you by your ticket number, you will walk up to this biometrics officer and hand in all your documents, including the processing form. So here, the biometrics officer will review all your documents and will then enter your information into a computer. Now, depending on the code number that appears in your biometrics appointment notice, what you're going to be asked to do at this point is going to vary. Now, if your code number states codes 2 or 3, the biometrics officer will ask you to take a seat where your digital photograph will be taken. And on the other hand, if your code number states code number 1, your digital photograph will not be taken. And when it comes to the scanning of your fingerprints, if you have code number 1, then you can expect to get all your fingerprints scanned. If you have code number 2, you're only going to have your left and right index fingers scanned. And if you have code number 3, again, just like code number 1, you can expect to have all your fingerprints captured. Now, don't worry about making any mistakes with the scanning of your fingerprints, as the biometrics officer is going to be there to make sure that your fingerprints are properly scanned into the system. Now, for codes number 2 and 3, after your fingerprints have been scanned, you will be asked to provide your electronic signature. Now, once this process has been completed, the biometrics officer will stamp your Form I-797C, marking that your biometrics information have been collected. And after that, your job is done and you may leave the Application Support Center. Now, the total time spent during your appointment shouldn't exceed 20 minutes. But in some cases where you have a lot of people waiting before you, or if you have few biometrics officers, your appointment time could exceed 20 minutes. Now, most of these biometrics officers are very professional and very polite, so you should expect your experience to be quite pleasant. Now, you should understand that by providing your biometrics information to USCIS, you are granting USCIS permission to conduct a criminal background search on you. Now, if you have a criminal history and you're worried about the outcome of this background search and how that could affect your immigration application, then I'll highly recommend you seek the counseling of an experienced immigration attorney. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you on the next video. So if you've applied...
So the gentleman was quite helpful. Seems very knowledgeable on the subject. Everything that he said is very, very valuable. Even some of the might seem trivial could be very important. Biometrics is extremely. Don't skip that appointment. Don't even try to skate over it. It won't work. That could seriously hamper any effort to become a U.S. citizen or enter the United States legally under any kind of documentation.
Immigration lawyers commonly charge either a flat fee or hourly rate for naturalization services. Flat fee range, citizenship assistance. Typical, $500 to $2,500. Some attorneys, especially with interview prep, charge $1,000 to $3,000 or more. Hourly rates, less common for N400. More common for complex cases. Typically $150 minus $500 per hour. Estimated all-inclusive attorney cost. Lower end, basic form prep, $500 to $1,200. Average to higher end, form prep plus interview/training, $1,500 to $3,000. Premium service, top-tier firms attending interview, extra complexity, up to $5,000 plus.
So this can get quite expensive, attorneys. It is still highly recommended that you do not try to go through this by yourself. Get an attorney. Get a coach that knows the system. So important. Many people who have tried to do it on their own without assistance have been very, very disappointed.
Medical exam, if required outside standard process, $200 to $500. Document translation, $20 to $50 per page. Passport photos, $10 to $25. Mail/courier charges, $10 to $50. Unless you're adjusting status with a green card, the medical exam may not be required. But it's wise to budget a modest buffer, $200 to $300, for incidentals.
Always have a financial buffer. Don't ever try to guess the exact amount, because it depends on what needs to be done. It depends on how long it's going to take, because attorneys, they bill by the hour, right? So you want to be very careful about that. Financial buffer. Remember that. All right. Let's take a look at some costs here. If you do everything yourself, it's going to come to approximately, and by approximately, I mean it could be $800, or it could be $1,000, it could be $1,500. But I'm going to give you some estimates here. $925. That's the estimate. Now, with the basic attorney support, now I don't know what that is because I've never gone through it. I don't have any idea what those details are because I've never actually spoken to an attorney. I've had no need. So, but the attorney fee is $725. All right, or the USCIS fees, $725. That's the filing. And then it's $500 to $1,200 for attorney fees. There's a throw in that $200 for a buffer. That's not set in stone. I recommend having as much as a buffer as you could possibly muster, and whatever's left over you can use to help you get settled. Now, the total cost could be anywhere from $1,425 to $2,125. If you want to go full service, So you've got an attorney, you've got coaches, you've got all kinds of support. Those things, excuse me, those things cost money. Somebody has to pay for them, and no one is going to pick up the bill for you unless they're super, super nice. So $725 for USCIS, $1,500 to $3,000 for attorneys. Then there's your buffer, and like I say, as much as you could possibly set aside. $2,425 or $4,000 to $4,025. Again, estimates. You want to get the absolute best support. The $3,000 to $5,000 for attorneys. Whole thing could come to between $4,000 and $6,000. To me, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's more money than I see at one time. Okay, here's some tips to save some money.
DI N400 filing is common and straightforward, saves thousands. Use limited scope legal review, unbundled services. Many charge $500 to $700 just to review. Access community resources, free clinics, pro bono legal aid via nonprofits. Apply for a fee waiver if income eligible can reduce payments to use this.
All of these things. Great tips. Don't spend money you don't absolutely need to. Now, if you see the N400 form and it's intimidating to you, don't try to fill it out yourself. It's not complicated. It's a really super simple form. That's not the problem. The problem is sometimes people look at it not being accustomed to the way that things are phrased or worded here in the United States. The confusion can be the result. So I recommend that if you have any sort of confusion about it at all, get some help filling out the form. If you don't try to bundle all your services, you can save some money, and you won't have to pay for services that you might not need. So that's a tip. So the premium services that come in packages, you try to avoid those where you can. Community resources, free clinics. Healthcare is not the greatest, but it is free. Pro bono legal aid and nonprofits, rare, right? I mean, they're out there. But absolute pro bono in the private practices of lawyers and attorneys, extremely rare. You will find some nonprofit organizations that offer pro bono legal services. Now, those are quite common. Timetable. The time that it can take to procure their services and get results may be a little longer than what some people would like. Then that's because they are free, they are quite busy. Scheduled full, to be sure. Fee waivers. Rarely granted. But if you have an opportunity, apply for it anyway. You never know. It just might happen. And if it happens, then that part of it is good to go. I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not saying it won't be frustrating. And I'm not going to say there's tons of help on it. What I am going to say is look into it anyway. What do you have to lose? Okay, so Minimum total filing, $925, roughly. Maybe higher, maybe lower, depending on the services, depending on what happens during the process. Very important to understand that. Most typical full service, $2,400 to $4,000. Again, it's an estimate. Or you can pay $4,000 to $6,000 to get the absolute best service from lawyers and attorneys and coaches and so forth, so on. Again, try to avoid the bundles, because then you're paying for services that you probably don't need or will never use. So here's something for you to think about, for everybody to think about. Listen to this very, very carefully.
Weighing the cost of lawfully entering the U.S. against the cost of paying a human smuggler, the question begs to be asked. Why pay the smuggler more than $10,000 and always worry about getting deported? Why not pay just an estimated $4,000 to $6,000 and be a legal permanent resident?
That's a fair question. Why risk paying a smuggler or a cartel sometimes $10,000 or tens of thousands of dollars in some cases, and then coming across the border? Sometimes they leave you at the border and say, well, we got you here, there's the border, go ahead. And then you cross the border illegally. You may or you may not get caught. Well, now let's just stop and think about that for a minute. If you don't get caught, now you're inside the country. You are not good to go. You are constantly going to be concerned about whether you're going to be found out. You're going to be worrying about deportation, legal issues. You're going to have to become employed. Now, the only way to become employed in the United States and not being a legal resident is to break the law. Lie about your identity, find a employer who's willing to hire you and not report it, but you can expect that that employer is not going to treat you the best. They know that they have you over a barrel, and they're going to keep you there. You're going to be working for a great deal less money than you'll probably need, and they're going to have you working ungodly hours. Why? Because they know that you can't report that. You cannot report them abusing you, because if you do, you will expose yourself, and then eventually you'll be deported. So they will be very apt to abuse you in some ways. Heaven forbid that they should abuse you physically. I'm not saying it never happens. I'm just saying that I've never heard of a case, but I don't see where it's beyond the scope. So that's a possibility. After you get here, try to learn the language. Try to learn English. Here's why. A great deal of documentation, a great deal of directions, such as road signs, building labels, most menus in restaurants are in English. English is the world's language of business. So if you want to do business in the United States and get the most out of it, there are places they can do business in enclosed communities, such as Little China and Little Italy and those sorts of places where shop owners don't really speak English, but they always have someone around while they're doing business that speaks English. Why? Because English is the business language of the world. Anybody who is successful at all will be able to speak English. So I say, learn the language. Learn the laws and the customs and abide by them. Stay out of trouble. Stay away from people who are causing trouble. These are all things that are going to be of tremendous value to you. So I say, as far as coming into the United States, come on in, sit down, kick your shoes off, have a pot roast, fill out the paperwork, learn the language, learn the customs, learn the laws. You will find life here so much more comfortable. So having touched on all of that, I hope there's been something useful for you. So I would like to take this moment to ask you to comment, like, share, follow. Super important. It helps to keep this thing going and make it worthwhile. So I would like to thank you for your time. God bless you. God bless America.